Hey everyone, welcome to our channel Megha Discourse. Now, today we are going to do this topic, all isms in English literature. You can call it literary movement as well, but my focus is especially on isms. Suppose we have expressionism, imagism, dadaism, whatism, impressionism, so on. Why we need to study those literary movements? What is the importance of those literary movements? Simply, what is literature? And what is literature supposed to do with us? And this can be easily explained and understand by studying these isms. When we connect age to another age, when we connect period to another period. Now, all the literary movements, either they follow each other, either they rebel, or they follow but slightly in modification. So let us understand all the isms, why they are connected, why they are rebelling with each other, and what is importance of ism, from where this term actually originate. So basically, ism means a school of thought, or you can say a literary writer group. They have similar actions, they have similar thinking on a particular topic. Suppose we have romantic writers. They all admire nature. For all, nature is guide to them. So this is a particular viewpoint. Yes, they treat it differently, but yet they follow nature on emotional level, on spiritual level. So this is the basic point, the common point among all the romantic writers. That's why this movement is called romanticism. Similarly, realism. All the realist writers, they believed in presenting reality. And that is why they follow similar approach, that how to present the social reality through their works. So that is the realism. Similarly, we have so many isms. So let us understand all them in chronology. So have a pen and paper. I am not giving you PPT of this lecture because you have to update your notes by yourself so that it will keep in your mind, and listen the whole lecture very carefully. Okay, so let us start our first literary ism. So the first we have classism. So when you look back, then there is a thought in your mind that classism, they have their orderly structure. They believed in order, they believed in discipline, they believed in classism, controlled approach. Like we have neoclassism, they follow classist. John Keats, he followed them. Okay, so classism, they basically follow rules, discipline. They did not believe on excess emotion chaos. They did not believe on over excitement. They believed in minimalism. Let us explain things in minimal approach, with minimal words, with minimal thought. This is what the classical thinking was at that time. Like you have read Oedipus Rex, you have read Homer's Iliad, Odyssey. So when you read those works, you will find out that there is an approach which is based on minimalism, no emotional chaos. Yes, there is a plot, there is a tragedy, there is a sublimation point, there is a saturation point, and now sudden they have twisting turning point, and the story ends in catharsism. But they do not over exaggerate the situations. So this is what they believe in, minimal approach. Second, according to them, literature means delight and to instruct the readers. While we teach literature, we should feel some pleasure. We should feel some instructions, what the writer wants to give us. Okay, so this is the belief of classism. So they believe good literature delights while teaching in classroom. So they believed on reason over emotions. They give value to reasons. They did not give value to emotions, that we have emotional, we should follow emotional approach in literature. No, they said we should follow a reason over emotions. Reason is powerful. They believed in logic. They believed in balance. Okay, they try to balance their work. They try, like when you read old texts, you find out that they believed in balancing. Like if we have more characters, then this was the plot, then this, like we have Aristotle. Aristotle has given us the Poetics, and in which he has given the definition of tragedy. What is tragedy? After reading tragedy, the catharsis, feeling of pity and fear will evolve. So this is the definition of tragedy. Until now, we are following that definition. So he said that this is the tragedy, this is the comedy, this is the main character, what a protagonist should look like. Okay, so this is how all the classists believes in minimalism, reason, balance, delight, instruct. They just follow the single aid that yes, this is the particular definition. And if you are feeling the same thing, then it means you are a classist. They follow rule. Like Aristotle in Poetics said, we have unity of time, place, and action. It means they are following rules. If you want to learn the key writers of classist or any literary movement, just follow the one main writer. And after that, you will realize, yes, whole the classist writer will follow the main writer similarly. Okay, so in this classism, we have Homer, Sophocles, Virgil. So this is all about our first, that is classism. We have near around 35 isms in this lecture to cover. Okay, so I think now you can understand what is classism. The best example we have Poetics, Arts, Horatia, Oedipus Rex, and also we have Oedipus Rex, then we have Odyssey, Iliad, and so on. Okay, now next move to next ism. Now, the second we have medievalism, and the time period we have 1600 to 1500 CE. Now, what is the good thing so far as medieval is concerned? In classism, the main focus is man and reason, logic. But in medievalism, the focus shift towards God, heaven, Christianity, spirituality. So this shift now can be seen clearly in literature. Like we have Beowulf, in which you will find chivalric approach. We have so many poems like Chaucer wrote, William Langland, who wrote The Pious Plowman, where's a dream vision, chivalry, spirituality. Okay, so this is the theme at that time. So you can find suddenly from classicism, where the focus is on man and reason, it is shifted towards medievalism, which is clearly based on religion, which is especially Christianity. If the focus is on Christianity, now there is no logic, there is no rational approach. The man is not at center. Now God is at center. Heaven is at center. Your bad karmas, your good karmas, now you will punished through your bad karmas. So this kind of approach can be seen in medieval period. Similarly, you will find here humanism approach. Now, there are works which are more clearly allegorical instead of any other genre. Okay, then they are mainly focused on chivalry. So this is about medievalism. Now, classism is, again I'm repeating, classism is based on man, reason, rationalism, but sudden medievalism, the focus is on God, heaven, religion, and spiritualism. Okay, so this is how we are connecting literature from one age to another age. The important writer, like we have the work, we have Beowulf, Chaucer, William Langland, and some like we have Bible translations. Okay, so this is all about your medievalism. Now, this is a revision class. Just remind, I'm just trying to conclude all the points in this lecture. Now, then we have humanism. First, we read about classism. Then we read about medievalism. Now the focus is on humanism. Like in medievalism, the focus is on God. Now the shift can be occurred. Why the shift can be occurred? Now the people, the mass, now they try to raise question. Now they raised question that why God is at center. When we are living on the earth and when survival needs first, then why we consider God at the center? Humanity should be at center, human should be at center. So they focused on human approach. Now they are raising questions again and again that why God is at center, why Christianity is on the above surface, why we are following the rules of church, why there is a particular rule or religion. Okay, now they says that let us focus on human because we have to survive on the earth. So now they are focusing on human. Now they are giving to individualism. Yes, I am a girl and I have some rules and I have to follow all the rules. So this is individualism. Like I am myself, I have my approach, I have my feelings, desires, I have my own thought, I can live my life according to my mindset. So no, it is not like you have to be rebel, but yes, I am individual, I have some needs. So that is individual approach. Men and female, they both are different. All the religions are different. The tribes are different. There are culture norms. So this is what we call individualism. Okay, this is just an example. They are giving secular outlook. Now they can consider other religion. Yes, they are also living beings. Okay, so humanism is a broad concept. They are saying like human is at center. Okay, we don't need to follow up blind guidelines of church and monarchs. So this humanism did to the humanity at that time. Now, the biggest role model of humanism is Francesco Petrarch. He is the father of humanism, and he admired Greece and Roman, that is classicism rule, where again they followed man, reason, rationalism. Like this is the concept of, I told you 1,000 times, in literary movement, you will find the concept of grandfather and grandson concept. Like first we have classicism, then we have the father, medievalism, then we have the grandson, that is humanism. Now grandson, he is following the grandfather concept, that is classicism. Okay, so this is how in literary movement we can consider and we can easily understand and correlate with each other. Okay, so humanism, the father of humanism, Francesco Petrarch, he says that we should follow the rules which classicism follows at that time. We should not follow blindly the rules given by monarchs. Okay, so he is the founder of humanism in the Britain at that time. And the another writer related to this movement, they are Thomas More, who has given Utopia, that is an ideal society. There should be the place of humanity. Then we have Francis Bacon. Yes, he is correlate with humanism because he has given New Atlantis. Here he correlate humanity with science. Okay, then we have Erasmus, Philip Sidney, Shakespeare, and so on. They are related to humanism. Okay, now I think you can consider those writers who are related to 14th to 17th century and who lived this age, they are related to humanism. Okay, in humanism, we have seen that Francesco Petrarch, he is the founder of humanism, or you can say he is the first proponent who raised question against medievalism. Okay, now after Petrarchanism, now after Francesco Petrarch humanism, there is a poetic tradition, that is Petrarchanism. And why it is called Petrarchanism? Because our Francesco Petrarch, he loved a girl whose name is Laura. And when he was in love with her, so he felt lot of suffering, he felt lot of chaos, emotional turmoilness, and this new poetic tradition can be seen in our literature. Before that, we have chivalric poems, we have war poetry, we have poetry which praises king, monarchs, but now love poetry, love tradition can be seen in our literature and in the form of sonnet. Now we have different type of sonnets, like Shakespeare has different approach, Spenser and Sidney. Okay, so in Petrarchanism, this is a new poetic tradition. This is same period, 14th to 17th century. They believed in suffering. The love comes with suffering. If you suffer a lot, it means your love is pure. This is the belief of Petrarchanism. Okay, they believed on endless love, divinity. They believed in the concept of imagery. Can be seen in their work like life and death. Life is love. Death is to attain that love. Hell in heaven. If you are with your lover, that you are in heaven. If you are not with your love, and if your lover is betrayed, you are in hell. Okay, there is a concept of pleasure, pain, fire, and ice. These kind of binary position can be seen in the literature in form of sonnet. This is Petrarchanism. Okay, and another writers like who introduced sonnet, Petrarchan sonnet, that is Arlov Surrey, Thomas Wyatt, Henry Howard. Okay, so they introduced this concept in our English literature, and we have like Shakespeare. He used sonnet, but his sonnet is different from Shakespeare, Sidney, and Petrarch. Okay, he broke that fixity in the sonnet. Then we have Spenser, who used alexandroline. We have Sidney in Astropher and Stella, and so many writers associated with sonnet sequence or Petrarchanism. Like we have Shakespeare sonnet 130. Like he says for her beloved that my mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. So how romantically they wrote. at that time. All are related to love. All similar thing, they are following love. Like patriarchism follow for Laura, they are following for their beloved. Okay, so this is your patriarchalism. Hope you are liking this lecture. This is just a revision video, and if you have any query regarding this, you can message us. Humanism has given the approach of humanity. Humanism said that human is at center, no, God is not at center. Renaissance says, let's rebirth the literature. Let's rebirth what? Learning, which is suitable for the human being. Okay, so it is rebirth of learning. It is revival of old learning. And now they are following again their grandfather. That is, they are following humanism, and humanism is following classism. So they says there is a rebirth, or you can say revival of classism. And classism, they believed in man, reason. They believed in rational approach. They believed in logic. So Renaissance writer, they said that let us correlate, or let us explain all the facts with help of science. Let us explain all the facts with help of logic, with help of rationality. There should be some order. There should be some discipline while writing. Okay. Now they are not blindly following the classist rules like unity of action, time, place, as you can see the Shakespeare works. But yes, they are following, yes, we should follow what is good for us. Okay, in minimal approach, what we can explain, how we can explain a text better, how we can explain our ideas better. Just they pick the good thing from the classism and they just adapt that one. Okay, like rebirth of learning. Humanism, they believed in education. Now, the real expansion of education can be seen in Renaissance period. They believe that education is the right of everyone. Curiosity, it means awareness, creativity. Okay, so they are more curious because expansion of education can be happen at that time. So they are curious towards questions. They are curious towards their survival. They are curious towards their existence. Now they are raising question against monarchs, against courtly, against court, monarchs, kings, church, and the authority which try to suppress them. Okay, so this is what Renaissance, revival of their behavior as well. Okay, now they are more experiment. They believed in experimentation. Like we have so many works of Shakespeare. He has given historical text. He has given us tragedy, comedy, tragicomedy. So this is called experimentation. Before that, we have poetry, chivalric poetry. Now there is a sonnet sequence in which you will find the theme of love. Now here in this Renaissance time, you will find some new experiment with the drama, with the plays. Okay, so here you will find the writers like Shakespeare, who has given like Macbeth. Okay, and he has given Othello. How the each character is different, and each character is associated with different traits. Like someone has greed of power, someone has greed of woman, someone has greed of kingdom. Okay, so this is how he presented each and every character with help of social reality. Similarly, we have Spenser at the time, who has written the Shepherd's Calendar, Fairy Queen, again, allegorical poem. Okay, this is also the part of experimentation. Marlowe, who has given the Dr. Faustus, Jew of Malta, Edward, okay, so Milton, Paradise Lost, who has presented the follies of Adam and Eve, how the Satan has used his power to demean Adam and Eve. Okay, so they are all the part of Renaissance literature. Somehow of later Renaissance, somehow of being early Renaissance or middle Renaissance. They depend on their time period. Okay, this is all about Renaissance period. Now till now we have covered classism, then we have covered medievalism, humanism, patriarchalism, and Renaissance. This is how literature modifies itself to the help of generation, to the help of their previous literary movement. Now let's move to our next one. Another, we have mannerism. This is again the part of the same the golden period, Renaissance time, Elizabethan age. Now, what is the mannerism? Simply the school of thought which believes on manner, which believes on a different rule, rather believing constantly on Renaissance, rebirth of learning, or classical rule. They admire their different kind of genre. Like they believed in artificial literature. Now, what is artificial literature? They believed in complex vocab. They believed in complex imagery, symbol. They do not believe now on, yes, we have allegorical. No, let us just ignore that fact. We can write in allegory. Now let us create something new, and they create metaphysical poetry. Create something new, different genre, where we have so much complex characters, which is full of lauded vocab, which is full of grand narratives. Okay, so this is mannerism. This is not a separate movement, but yes, you should know about the fact that the writers who are associated with mannerism, they believed in complexity. Like we have John Donne. He clearly believed that why should we write simple poetry? We can write something grand, which unusual. So he has given us the concept of conceit, extended metaphor, okay, which is not easy to understand, which is not everyone's cup of tea to follow. Yes, many metaphysical use that conceit, but for them the conceit is different. Okay, so similarly we have Spenser. Yes, Spenser is also full of mannerism. Like you can say in Fairy Queen, there are a lot of characters who are related to many symbolism. Okay, like similarly we have, he has given us that knight and he symbolized so many things. So this is what we call mannerism. Okay, artificial literature, the complexity that it is not easy to understand. It is not easy. Okay, it is not, we are not moving on a single path. We have multiple paths. We have multiple things to assimilate in a single text. Okay, so that is mannerism. They believed in artificial literature. They believed in complexity of literature. They believed in chaosness. They believed in emotional turmoil. They do not believe on discipline. They do not believe in orders. Okay, so they want to explain, they want to show their intellectuality, and clearly they have presented the works with intellectual approach. Okay, so now let's move to next one. So the next we have euphemism. Who is associated with euphemism? None other than John Lilly. He is the father of euphemism, and he has given a clear text, An Anatomy of Wit. What? An Anna of Wit. This is your work. Now, what is good in euphemism? So just understand. If you want to say, I'm hungry, you are saying like, oh, I want to eat something crispy, baked, warm, spicy. Okay, so you presented your craving like this. Instead of saying simple, like I want to eat sandwich, what you said, I want to eat something crispy, something grilled, baked, something which is made of bread, which is made of, we have so much veggies in it. Okay, so this is how euphemism works. Exaggeration, prose style, a lot of alliteration, a lot of excessive style, a lot of words, vocab, but balanced sentence can be seen in euphemism. Okay, long comparison, mythological experience can be seen. They believed in excessive alliteration, believed in lots of words, long comparison, long paragraph, artificial style. Why we need to say a single thing directly? Yes, let us make a big paragraph on the particular thing. Okay, now the next we have neoclassicism. What is neo here? What is the role of neo before using classicism? You know very well that classicism means order, discipline. Okay, but why we use new? It means new classicism with new rules, with new writers, with some modification. So here they followed classicism but with new approach. Okay, so this is the time period of 1660 to 1785. That is your Augustan age, Restoration age. Okay, this is clearly cut known as the age of reason. And when we are calling it the age of reason, it means the reason dominates the age. Satire dominates the age. Logical approach dominates the age. So you will find here that writers like John Dryden, Jonathan Swift, we have Alexander Pope, Samuel Johnson, they believed on satirical approach. They believed that let us use some satire, some heroic couplets to present the follies of our corrupt society or our corrupt monarch, corrupt king, corrupt church. A clear example can be seen, the rape of Locke. The language he used, heroic couplet, to present the folly of our main character. Okay. Then similarly, we have Dryden, who has given the text like Macflecknoe. Okay, and essay on dramatic poesy, and he has given so many poems, The Hind and the Panther. Like in all the poems and in all the works of John Dryden, you will see the satire approach. Jonathan Swift, we have Samuel Johnson. Jonathan Swift, there is an essay a modest proposal. Who in this you will find a clear, staunch approach to mock. And he has used baby as a survival mode to given a staunch, you can say, a mockery on our kings, on our court, government. Okay, so neoclassicism, they are following old order, discipline, but with a new twisting turning point. They use satire, they use heroic couplet. Now they are not using that old allegory, that old rules, but yes, they are disciplined and orderly, and their purpose is what? Their purpose is to unhide all the hidden things which is existing at that time in the society, to explain and to, you can say, to uncover all the political fact, all the political hidden fact to the masses. Okay, so this is neoclassicism. They are rule breaker. They respect literary rules. They believe that through literature we can change our society, we can change the mindset of people. So this is the belief of neoclassicist writer. Okay, now the next we have sentimentalism, and the time period is 1730 to 1780. Somehow it coincides with our neoclassicism. Now they believed that we should follow some satirical work, we should follow some satirical literary rules, heroic couplet should be there, we should uncover the follies of human, the follies of our authority. But now there are some writers who says, why we need to follow this approach? What is good in that? There should be some feeling inside the man of feeling. They believed in man of feeling. They believed in compassion. Every human is related to compassion. They have feelings. They have some turmoil inside. There is some turmoil happening inside their mind, inside their heart. They are not expressive. So let us do something for those non-expressive creatures of our earth. So they believed in emotional creature literature. Now they believed on realistic approach, somehow sentimentalism. Now they are giving values to sentiments of human, sentiments of man. It is not about the male one, but it is about the whole man and female. So now they are saying that let us follow some sentimentalistic approach, and this can be clearly seen in the works of Oliver Goldsmith, the Vicar of Wakefield. You can see Samuel Richardson. He has given Pamela. Another, we have Lawrence Sterne. You can say mostly novelists are under sentimentalism. Okay, so we have Thomas Gray. He has written Elegy written in country churchyard, and that elegy means the feeling, the morning. Okay, and this morning can be explained through sentimental, because he has empathy towards person, he has sympathy towards the person. That's why he wrote that elegy. And again, it is emotional creature. Okay, so you will find here sentimentalism. Now let's move to next one. Now the next is Gothicism. We have talked about sentimentalism, which clearly says that man of feeling. Now if we are talking about man of feeling, that in those feelings we have fear, we have some psychological terror, some hauntedness, some horror in the mind of people. So that is presented by Gothic approach. Okay, so that fear, that psychological terror is presented by our writers, and they are associated with Gothism. Now there is a group of writers, they came and said, oh, the man of feeling, why they have fear, let us explain them through our work. Why always man should have fun, they should have some fear, they should have some hauntedness, they should have some ghost. So they use that Gothic approach. Now there is a work, Castle of Otranto. There is a work written by Anne Radcliffe. There is a work written by Mary Shelley Frankenstein. Okay, so these kind of work, they presented psychological terror, and from here psychoanalytic study we are reading in our literary theory. Okay, they believed in horror, ghosts, graveyard scene. There is a thunder, there is a storm, there is a castle which should be in the dark in an area. There should be some jungle, there should be some, they have some a horror sport. Okay, there should be a thundering, lightning, and there's a character which seems like haunted characters. Okay, there is some kind of, in movies we have, there's some lulting. Okay, there is that kind of lulting. They will move with that lulting. This is a symbolism that if it is a haunted movie, so these kind of things can be clearly seen in our movies, in our literature, like castle, a dark castle, or in the woods. Okay, like in jungle. Okay, there should be a dark castle amidst the woods, and you will find here thundering, lightning, lot of trees, darkness. There's a no, and their aura inside the castle is completely dark. And the movie, they made that movie and say in dim light. You will find here something night is seen more. So these kind of this particular symbolic thing, so far as Gothism is concerned, okay, they use darkness as their weapon so that they can generate the feeling of terror among the people, among the audience, among the readers. So this is Gothic approach. Now, who are associated with that? We have Horace Walpole, we have Anne Radcliffe, Mary Shelley, so many. Okay. Now, let's move to next one. Now, the next we have Romanticism. You all know about the Romantic period. You all know about the Romantic approach. So, Romanticism, now this word I told you in many videos that Romanticism is not mean love here. Romanticism here means nature worship. Romanticism here means adventure, okay, which is related to, again, nature. Romanticism means rebel against neoclassicism. They are highly against neoclassicism. They believed that neoclassicism, they the mind of people, that why we need to mock everyone, why we need to use satire. They believed on nature. They believed that there is a person, there is a human, and human has mixed feelings. They believed on nature as worship. Nature is spiritual. Okay, they believed on emotions. They gave importance to emotions over any other fact. For them, emotion is not like there should be chaos, there should be love. No, for emotions means yes, we have emotions and we have to present that. Okay, so they believed on imagination, creativity, some kind of imagery you can see clearly. Like it is said that from lyrical ballad, publication of lyrical ballad, Romanticism begins. And who is it's none other than William Wordsworth. Okay, so like first generation, we have Lake poets, William Wordsworth, Robert Southey, Ashley Coleridge. Then in second generation, we have John Keats, Ashley Coleridge, Lord Byron, Shelley. So for all of them, nature is different. They treat nature like Shelley is rebellious more. Lord Byron, he presented Byronic hero because there is a trap against Lord Byron. He was cast out from the society because of blame. Okay, Maybe Shelley, he is atheist and he did not believe on existence of God. And this is what you can say, the darkest point so far as Shelley is concerned. John Keats, he believed on emotions, he believed on imagination. Yeah, there's a nightingale, there's a Grecian on a thing of beauty is joy forever. Okay, so this is the clear mindset of John Keats. We have William Wordsworth, who believed on nature, like the poetry is spontaneous overflow, powerful feeling. Why we need to work like I have seen the scenery, so I have to write that poem. No, he believed that first look at the first look at the scene, first look at the nature, and then feel it. Then you have to create all the good thing of that particular scene into your mind. You have to look at that, you have to embrace that nature scenery, and then suddenly after 5 years you have to write poetry on that nature scenery. So this is the mindset of William Wordsworth. We have Robert Southey, we have Ashley Coleridge, who believes on primary imagination, secondary imagination, fancy, biography literaria, the rhyme of ancient mariner, who used super segmental features like there's supernatural element, there's the albatross, okay, Kubla Khan, water, and like he has written the line, water everywhere, not drop to drink. So, okay, so this is how they present in nature, in a good manner as well as a bad way. Like for nature, for Wordsworth is very pleasant, but nature for Ashley Coleridge is haunted. Nature for Shelley is rebellious. Nature for Keats is admiration. Okay, so they believed in same concept, but they treat it differently. Okay, so this is Romanticism, revolt against neoclassicism. Why we follow the same order? Why we follow the man of feeling? There is a nature as well. We are learning something from nature. Exactly, we are learning everything from nature. Why we follow the same rule of classism and neoclassicism? Let us break this rule. Let us be rule breaker. And they evolved a new thing, Romanticism. They believed on nature. They believed on creativity, imagination, thinking, imagery. Okay, there's a movement related to Romanticism. This is Transcendentalism. It is called American Romanticism. Now, American Americans thinks, let us generate something looked like romanticism. So they believed on transcendentalism. But their romanticism, that is their transcendentalism, and our transcendentalism, romanticism is different in the manner. In romanticism, they are following nature. They are following pleasure and pain of nature. But they said, yes, we should follow nature in the form of intuition. Nature is inside us. We should follow our intuition. If you are feeling that this work is going to be good, then follow that. If you are feeling that no, there is something wrong, then don't do that work. So the transcendentalist writer like Emerson, Thoreau, they believed on intuition power. Okay, they said they are against, like romanticism, they are against industrialization, they are against that urbanization. So they are also against those pollution, industrialization. They are against that factual approach happening at that time. They've said that let us follow our intuition, let us follow our consciousness. That is, they have given self-reliance. Okay, they have given the work nature, Walden. Okay, and they wanted to feel some spiritual experience at that time. They wanted to feel some imagination with help of intuition. They wanted to have some spiritual experience. They believed that individual can directly experience divine truth through intuition power, through consciousness. When they generate their conscious power, when they work on themselves, when they work on their good karmas, so they can automatically meet to their divine truth. They can meet their God, and the God can have and God is different for different person. So they believed that we should focus on intuition, self-reliance, consciousness. If we are working on ourself, individualism, then we can attain whatever we can. Okay, knowledge is power, book is power, and through study, through reading, through knowledge, we can attain so many things. So this is transcendentalism, that is called American Romanticism. Similarly, we have next, that is dark romanticism. I have not included that, but now I recall that. Now, what is dark romanticism? This is the extended version of transcendentalism. Like we have Nathaniel Hawthorne. He believed on dark romanticism. He believed that yes, transcendentalism there, we should follow intuition, but there is a dark romanticism as well. There is a dark side of human. We should present that. So that Hawthorne, that is Nathaniel Hawthorne, he has given the concept or book, The Scarlet Letter, in which he has presented the folly of monarch, that folly of that person who worked in church, Dimmesdale. Okay, so he says that human follies are there. We should not always think positive towards human. We should also present fakeness and fraudness of human, and that's why he used Scarlet Letter. The Puritan approach can be clearly seen in dark romanticism. That's why it is called dark. That nature is dark. Nature is not good every time. Nature has dark side, and that dark side is presented by Nathaniel Hawthorne in dark romanticism. So who is associated with dark romanticism? Nathaniel Hawthorne. Who is associated with transcendentalism? Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. Romanticism, I told you earlier. Okay, so let's move to next one. Now, the next we have Victorianism. This is the time of Queen Victoria. We all know that after Romanticism, we have Victorianism, Queen Victoria. Now, this is the time of fact. This is the time of faith over reason, faith over science. Now, people, they are in group of, let us follow spirituality, let us follow religion blindly. And someone says, let us follow science over religion. So this is, you will find here, science and religion. Okay, this is a time of industrialization, urbanization, rapid growth. Railways were expanded, schools were there. So when we have industrialization, urbanization, they addressed poverty, child labor, poor structure, infrastructure. Okay, so these kind of social evils can be seen. Crime rate is more at that time because of urbanization, because now they are not connected to nature anymore. They are connected to industries, they are connected to money making, they are connected to how to suppress people. So these kind of evils can be clearly seen at the time of Victorianism. Yes, this is the time of rapid growth, but the growth of crime, the growth of poverty, the growth of quarrelsome, the growth of fighting can be seen in this age as well. Okay, so Victorianism, like you have written so many, like Charles Dickens, he has presented facts in the hard times. He has given the child labor He has given the concept of child labor, theme of child labor in his so many works, okay, like Oliver Twist, okay. Now another we have a writer associated with this movement, Charlotte Bronte, that is Bronte sister, George Eliot, Charles Dickens, we have Henry Fielding, and lot of, okay, like The Great Expectations, Hard Times, we have Wuthering Heights, and so many works related to Victorianism. So just you keep the thing in mind, in Victorianism, moral seriousness and consciousness is there. Now people are believing much on individualism, but that individualism is how to attract money more for ourselves. So there are concept of social realism, naturalism can be generated in the time of Victorianism. Okay, so this is your Victorianism. We have now, till now we have covered 14 isms. Okay, I think you are not getting bored. Now the next movement we have pre-Raphaelitism, that is pre-Raphaelite brotherhood, and this is most important topic. You can see a lot of question in your paper. I think in every cycle they ask some questions from pre-Raphaelitism. Now this is a time period. This is again important thing. Okay, your PYQ. Now they said in Victorianism we have industrialization, we have urbanization, moral seriousness, there is a rapid growth, poverty, poorness, some kind of rigidness. Why we are part of that kind of society? Now let us form a new genre. Now let us create a new group, and they create pre-Raphaelitism by following Raphael, who is a painter. So they actually followed classicism because he is a painter of Greece and Roman. Okay, so again you will find now they move to their grandfather, neoclassicism, and neoclassicism followed classicism. Okay, so they said we should believe on beauty, imagination, some kind of imagery. There should be some color, there should be some of dreams in painting. So they believed in beauty, imagination, spirituality through their painting, through their art, and through their literature. That is why who is associated with this? Who are the members like D.G. Rossetti, Christian Rossetti, Vera Morris? They are, and so many, they are members of A.C. Swinburne, members of our pre-Raphaelitism. So like we have the Blessed Damozel, Goblin Market. These kind of works can be seen in Blessed Damozel. There is a lover, and there is a man to whom she loves, and she died, and from the heaven she was seeing that man. Look at the imagery, look at the point, the love was D.G. Rossetti presented through pre-Raphaelite movement. Okay, so this is not movement. So this movement is not only associated with painting, but it is associated with literature. Like in literature, let us break the rule of facts, faith, religion, science, and let us generate some new things in our poetry. And they create the poetry with beauty, with imagination, a lot of creativity, emotion, intensity, which can be clearly seen in the Blessed Damozel. If you read the Blessed Damozel, then this movement can be clearly understandable to you. Okay, so this is believed in medieval dreams, believed in medieval approach. Okay, where Victorianism says social problems, they say we have solution, and the solution is painting, solution is literature, through imagination, through beauty, and through spirituality. Now there's a different movement, that is aestheticism, part of 1835-1910, which is again the contemporary of Victorianism. That is came in 1832. Now why we need to raise aestheticism when we have Victorianism? Simple, clear effect. Victorianism, the purpose of Victorian approach is to teach moral seriousness, to teach some realistic realism. But aestheticism says literature is not meant for teaching. Literature is meant for delight. Literature is meant for pleasure. It is meant for beauty. We don't need any teaching regarding literature. Is itself beautiful. Why we need to teach literature alike your works? So they disagreed Victorian concept, and they said no, we are not going to work with Victorian approach. We are making our approach. Who said that? Walter Pater and Oscar Wilde. So they made their movement aestheticism, and the clear slogan is art for art's sake. That is, the art is for beauty, the art is for the sickness of beauty, sickness of delightness, for pleasure. Why we need to teach that scenery? Like, look, there is a painting. Okay, this is beautiful. It is beautiful in itself. Why we need to teach that there is a nose, there is a hair, and the hair should be like that, not like that? No, there is no teaching anymore. They use decorative language. They says beauty is above morality. Okay, they believe that beauty is above morality. They believed in decorative language, embellished word. They believed in artistic freedom, that artist is free to explain the beauty of their work. We are not going to follow your rules. We are not going to follow that there should be science, reason, logic, satire, heroic couplet, blank verse. No, we are just explaining that work for the art's sake. The clear example is The Importance of Being Earnest, the picture of Dorian Gray, written by Oscar Wilde and Walter Pater. Okay, so they believed that art is not meant for moral lesson, art is for pleasure, for beauty. Okay, if you are finding some beauty in that, just enjoy that. You don't need to teach moral lessons from that particular picture. Okay, so this is your aestheticism. Now, the next we have realism. Now, in realism, it means real. And who idealized this statement? Romantics. Yeah, you can say romanticists idolized realism. Romanticists believed on emotions. So they believed on emotions with social representation, that we should present reality, social reality as it is. We should not follow the blind rules. We should not follow that, yes, if we are against government, then government will cast out us from the society. No, we are presenting whatever existing in our society. So we have like George Eliot, Mark, we have Henry James, the portrait of young lady. Then we have Thomas Hardy. So these kind of writers, they presented the social evils as it is without changing the norm of society. So realism believed there should be no fantasy, no imagination, no creativity. Let us present what is exactly as it is. They did not believe on ideal heroes, that there is a hero, there should be hero of upper strata. No, they said hero can be from lower strata as well. It is believed on their karma, it is believed on their good deeds of the character. So they presented everyday life, psychological depth, ordinary people, and they believed on lower strata, every culture type. They have given each and every corner of the society. They presented each and every corner of our society. They presented the flaw having in a society. They presented the follies, they presented the goodness and the badness simultaneously through the characters. Okay, so this is all about your realism. And the time period is 1850s to 1900s. Now, when we have realism, then why we need naturalism? The next is our naturalism. Let us understand the clear difference between them. When we have realism, who says you can choose whatever lies in society, you can choose. But naturalism, they are the mixing of realism and science. They said your environment chooses you. Okay, you are not yourself, you are not the authority who is gonna choose everything, but it depends on the environment you are living in. That is, it is called nature plus ism. The school of thought believes on nature, and nature can be good and bad, said by Tennyson. So the time period is somehow contemporary of realism. So they believe that yes, we should follow realistic approach. We will present the society as it is, but with help of science. And what is the role of science here? Darwin theory, when this book came, The Origin of Species, into the market, society was shattered. The belief system was shattered at that time over religion, over science. Now a new tradition, a new kind of species can be generated through after reading Darwinian theory. And this Darwin theory, it impact on realism, and that's why where we have naturalism. So in naturalism, a lot of impact can be seen of Darwinism, that is biological structure, environment, heredity, okay, discipline. They said a character is not morally corrupted by itself. Society made so, that's why he is a villain. So this is said by naturalism. If he is good, because of good parenting. If he is bad, because of bad parenting, because of the pressure, the peer pressure, the persons he are associated with, the biology, the genes he has in the DNA. Okay, so this is naturalism. So Darwin theory plays a greater impact on that. The writers associated with like Emile Zola, Stephen Crane, Theodore Dreiser, who wrote Sister Carrie, The Red Badge of Courage. Okay, so these are works, these are writers, you should know about that one, that this is the extended form of realism, but you will find the approach of science which is dominating on naturalism, but on realism there is no scientific approach. Okay, now the next we have symbolism. Again, the contemporary movement of realism and naturalism, 80s to 90s time. Now this is not against realism, and naturalism or kind of any other movement, but they believed on symbol. There is a group of group of writers who said that let us study symbols. Why we need to focus everything which is not hidden, which is seen. Okay, then let us understand the invisible meaning of characters and of text and the line who the writer is using, which is used by a writer. So they said, like realism said, what happened? So symbolism said, what does it mean? Let me explain this. So they believed on hint and clue. If a writer is saying, I am culprit, but he has not doing any bad karmas, being a good person, he was admitting the crime. Why so? So there was a hint and clue, like symbolism in the eyes or in the some movement or in the picture at that time. There is some kind of symbolism he used, and this theory is presented by W.B. Yeats. Like we have the Second Coming. Okay, the clear example. He has written so many works, but the Second Coming is the biggest symbolist work of W.B. Yeats. And after that, we have used that in novels. There is the symbol of, like in Scarlet Letter, that letter A, it has symbols. So after symbolism, they are presenting, now writers are now moving the thinking towards symbolism. Yes, we should have some hidden meaning so that it can be used in saturation point, it can be used after climax. They use music approach, like if there is some bad characters like Kamolika, Dum Tanana, some type of climax scene. If there is some love moments, they use some piano tune, violin tune. Okay, this is a part of your symbolic approach. Okay, they believe there should be dream-like atmosphere. They believed on melodious language. It is not melody toffee, but it's melodious language. They believe that if there is a sadness, so let us have some melancholy tune. Okay, so symbolism means some invisible meaning which writers does not intentionally wants to present, but he gave hint to the readers that you have to understand the theory behind the scene. Okay, now the next we have impressionism. What is the impression of reader? The first impression is the last impression. So this is called impressionism. Again, the time period is 1820s, 1880s, 1920s. Now the modernism, we are shifting towards modernism. Okay, they believed in objective reality. Clearly they said, if there is a situation, if we have two persons, okay, so both two persons can see the situations differently. For them, the situation is not same. For some persons, UGC is easy if they cracked it before, but for some person, it is very hard if they are beginner. Okay, so a same situation is different for different person. This is called impressionism. How they are seeing that particular thing, what is the perception of the reader this is called impressionism. Okay, like in symbolism, that is hidden meaning. Impressionism, let me explain my personal experience for the situation. So they believed in objective reality, and from where this word come from, it came from romanticism. They believed in personal perception. That I think UGC is quite easy because I have cracked that. So this is my personal experience, and if I crack that, so it boosts my confidence. But if it's still now I have not cleared that paper, so I think I'm not teaching you here. I think I am now into patient and I was reading books. Okay, so this is personal experience. This is how I explain my journey, that yes, this is easy one, you can read that one, you can skip that part. Okay, so this is called impressionism, feeling after experience. Okay, they believed in ambiguity. They know how to mold the situation. This person knows this is the situation, and if he explain that situation, so this person has two minds. So there is an ambiguity in the mind of X. Suppose her name is X. Okay, so this is called ambiguity. Now it is up to him that he wants to follow his intuition, that is transcendentalism, or the wide mindset. Like the writers of it with Henry James, Joseph Conrad, Virginia Woolf. Now you can see they all believed in stream of consciousness, or you can say interior monologue, that is the thought inside the mind. So that is the impressionism, personal perception. Whatever is inside my mind, can I explain it better? So this is impressionism. Okay, the next we have imagism. That is, it came from image. And when you look at image, you will find minimum words and maximum imagery. Okay, if you are seeing a picture, so you don't rely on the words written on it, you will rely the picture you are seeing. First impression is your own picture, not on the words. Okay, and if your mind is like you have to read the words first, that is again impressionism, that you are fond of text first, then the picture second. Okay, so imagism again 1909 to 1917. They believe that why we need to focus on Victorian poetry, which is a lot of words, a lot of creativity, a lot of complex sentences, facts, faith. They said, let us write a poetry with help of sharp, precise, and economical words. We should not use maximum words into a poetry. We should use minimal words. Okay, some kind of simple words which can explain the scene better. Okay, so they said, yes, word matters. If there's a maximum words, it means it is a very lofty and it is confusing word. So they believed that word matters and we use minimum words. Okay, they believed in free words, because if we have minimum words, then we cannot make it in a blank words or in a heroic couplet. Okay, writer associated with like Ezra Pound, Hilda Doolittle, Amy Lowell, he says, make it new. Okay, so this is the belief system of Ezra Pound. So imagism, they believed in minimal words, maximum imagery. Like there is a poem in a station of metro written by Ezra Pound. It is only a 2-line poem, and he explained all the poem. So this is how, and he is the founder. This is how he presents imagism. Let us use images to explain what is inside our mind. No unnecessary explanation, no forced explanation, only there is an image. Whatever inside my mind, I am explaining with the image. Like a thing of beauty is joy forever. When you look at the nature, when there is a rain and when you find a thunderstorm, the scene comes into your mind. Oh, a thing of beauty is joy forever. It means the nature is very beautiful. You will find water, you will find here boats, you will find trees, you will find some kind of animal. Okay, so this is what we call, if I am saying starry night, image come into your mind, night full of stars. So, okay, imagism. Now the next we have futurism. It means let us look towards future and forget the past. Okay, we should not regret whatever we have done in our past. Let us follow the future approach. So they believed in futuristic approach. They believed that let us destroy the past. If this is a time of rapid growth, if there is a time of car, machines, the time of AI, let us use it. Why we need to focus on millennial approach or the approach for millennial? No, we are Gen Z, we are Gen Alpha, so we are focusing on AI. We will use AI. So this kind of approach, that is futurism. Okay, let us see, let us move towards, not backwards. Okay, and the founder of futuristic approach is Filippo Marinetti. Okay, so this is a little literary movement, but you should know who is the founder and what is their approach. Suppose if they ask, then you should know they believed in destroying the past and they believed in making the future. They do not believe in present situation, they believed in future. If this is a time of AI, okay, I will use that. If it's time of machines, I will borrow it. Why we need to wash all the clothes with our hands if this is the time of machine? Semi-automatic or automatic? Okay, so this is kind of futurism. Now, the next we have Vorticism, 1914-1915, that is a time of World War. Okay, futurism said, let us focus on motion of forwardness. Okay, they believe in forward approach. But Vorticism says that futurism, you are too obsessed with the futuristic approach. You should stop here and you should focus on concentrated approach, concentrated energy. We should focus on present energy. That is, they believed in concentrated energy. They believed in angular style, center energy. Like, if we need that, we will follow it. If we do not need that, why we need to follow that? Okay, so this is called Vorticism. And who is the founder? Wyndham Lewis is the founder, father of Vorticism. Ezra Pound, he used it in work. That if I need 20 words to explain, I will use that angular style. I will use that minimal word style. So this is what we call Vorticism. Okay, futuristic approach is different. It means if I use, like they are using AI, suppose. Okay, it means what is the bad effect of AI? They are not focusing on that one. But Vorticism, that please be centralized. You should focus on positive, negative, everything, and then you can use it. You should not be opportunistic. You should be concentrated. Okay. Now, Then we have two terms, modernism, postmodernism, that is present time, and modernism, that is Second World War. So in modernism, this time, you can correlate, this is the time of World War. A lot of chaos, disillusionment, fragmentation can be seen in the work as well as in the society. So they believed in minimalistic approach. They believed in expressionism, impressionism, imagism, these kind of features. They believe in narratives, stream of consciousness, interior monologue. Like, it's a time of war and this is the time of happy transition. So you will find here fragmentation, disillusionment, newness. Okay, so you can have this in your literature as well. So just keep this in mind. This is a time of World War. So fragmentation, disillusionment, past energy, past memory. Okay, and you will find minimalistic approach, narrative stream of consciousness, these kind of features, like whatever we are reading now, symbolism, impressionism, expressionism. So this is the part of modernism and postmodernism. Why the postmodernism? You will find a plus approach from modernism. Now the next we have expressionism. Like, impression means my perception, my personal perception, my experience. So expression means let us explain and let us uncover whatever inside my mind. Let us uncover the inner feeling through literature. Okay, so they believed in emotions rather reality. They said, okay, reality is good one. We do not believe that. Believed on emotions. We believed on inner feeling. We believed on inner thoughts. Like, I have something into my mind, I have to explain that. So this is called how to express yourself. Okay, so they believed on inner truth. If I'm not getting something good vibe, so I have to explain that. So this is called expressionism. Okay, and the founder, August Strindberg, Eugene O'Neill, like you have read in The Hairy Ape, the feeling of ape, that no one likes him because of his hairy appearance, because of his giant experience. Okay, so this is called the expression of expressionism. This is an example of expressionism. So you will find a stream of consciousness, multiple perspective here. Okay, they believed on emotional intensity, that why a sudden their character is outburst with emotions appeal. So distorted reality, nightmare imagination, alienation, exclusion, isolation can be clearly expressed through expressionism. So this is called expressionism. Now we have another two isms. First we have Dadaism. So Dadaism and Surrealism, we are reading it in simultaneously because they are opposite to each other. The reason being is that here, Dadaism says art is absurd. Why they said art is absurd? Because you know very well, this is the time of World War. Millions died in World War. Okay, this is a time of fragmentation. This is a time of anxiety and elation. So they said that if the society is corrupted, society is dead. So art is dead. Art is absurd. If the people wants to fight, it means art is absurd because you present this reality and we do not want to read that literature. So they said that is the means that everything is dead. Okay, so there is an echo that literature is dead now. So Tristan Tzara and Hugo Ball, they are associated with Dadaism. But on the other hand, after 24, when writers said, now in the literature we are finding art is absurd, everything is dead, we have to revive it. And the surrealists came and they believed in the theory of Sigmund Freud, that unconscious mind, ego, superego. They believed on unconscious mind. Now they said dream imagery. They said, no, everything is not absurd. We have to manifest something good. Okay, so they believed on surrealistic approach. It is not real, but alike real. Okay, so Andrew Batten, he is the founder. Just keep this thing in your mind. So surrealists believe art is not absurd. We should manifest something good. But whereas Dadaism said art is absurd because of war, because of lot of bloodshed. So surrealists say write without consciousness. Okay, whatever inside your mind, just write it down, just pen it down. So this is called surrealism. Yes, it is not looking like real, but write what is in your unconscious mind. So their focus is on unconscious mind. Okay, you do not need anyone, you don't need any painting, you don't need any jungle, world, wood, you don't need any situation. Just write whatever inside your mind. This is surrealism. The next we have objectivism and existentialism. Now they all are related to World War. Object means we believe in objectivity, objective correlativity. They believed that clarity should be there. There should be use of language. That is exact use of language. There is a no kind of exaggeration. Whatever is your thought, there should be clarity in your thought. There should be clarity in your words. What are you presenting? What you are going to say? So they are urging writer, please present the reality with clear precision, with clear writing, with clear use of language. So they said a poem should be treated with a carefully crafted subject. Okay, so your thought should be clear. Your thought should be with neat and clean mind. Okay, George Open and Louis Joukowsky, they are related to objectivism. Now, on another hand, we have existentialism, that is existential crisis. Like we have, I forget the name. Suddenly, Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot. Okay, existential precedes essence. So they wants to say in 1940s, again the time of war, they said that life has absurdity. Life has no meaning. The life is meaningless. When we have war, there is a meaningless people are died. So it means there is a no existentialism. Now they are believing where we lie. Do we live or not? Okay, so they kind of survival suffering into the mind of people. Okay, and who is associated? Jean-Paul Sartre, who has given the definition of absurdism or existentialism. Albert Camus, who has Simone de Beauvoir. Okay, like she wrote The Second Sex. These are related to existentialism. They are raising question against existence of humanity, like male or female, or existence of female into the society of patriarchal society. So they all are believing that if one dominates, the other will subjugate by itself. Okay, so they believed, does the life has meaning? Okay, they believed you have no fixed position in the society. The society will change. Like Simone said in The Second Sex, that gender is, that she said, gender is social approach. People, yes, gender is biological. We know that there is a male, female, but into the mind of people, it is because of society. So it is more social approach than biological. Okay, so this is on existentialism, this is on objectivism. Now the last but not the least, so again I'm saying we are taking isms here, not all literary movements, only literary, that is school of thought. This is your last one, absurdism. This is the extended version of existentialism. Now existential says life has no meaning. They said, absurdism said, yes, life has no meaning. We have to search it. Okay. And when we are searching the meaning of life, it is absurdity, a total absurdity. So it can be clearly seen in Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot. There is a lot of waiting, chaos, alienation, isolation, no meaning of life. We are doing, but without any fruit. Okay. So this is called absurdism. And again, absurd behavior of people. Okay. So search for meaning. But when you search the meaning, you find complete absurdity. Like in Waiting for Godot, in both the acts, they are waiting for Godot. They are waiting for the Godot. They have not seen the person before, but they are waiting. They are waiting for the goodness without any karma. So this is what we call absurdity. You are waiting for the fruit to come, but you are not doing the thing for that particular thing. You want, let us purchase notes. Okay, let us see videos, let us purchase courses, and that is how you can crack your UGC NET. No, definitely no. You cannot crack UGC NET until unless you will do self-study. Self-study, when you do detailed study, then you can clearly differentiate between what is good for me, what is bad for me. Yes, ebooks, notes, courses, teachers, they can help you, but you have to read by yourself. So this is what we call absurdism. Totally believe on second person, totally believe on your mentor, totally believe on books and notes. Whatever the person said, don't you just believing on that person. Everyone has different journey. Just take this thing in your mind. Okay, so you need your own impressionism, expressionism to search for the meaning, search for the reality. Okay, so they said that human seeks meaning. Human can understand meaning if he wants to. This absurdist school of thought. And Harold Pinter, Eugene Ionesco, Samuel Beckett, they are associated with absurdism. Like we have The Birthday Party, Waiting for Godot, and so on. So this is all about your revision video on all isms. Hope you like this video. Okay, if you have any queries regarding this topic, So you can do message on WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram. So follow us on Telegram for more PDFs and videos, okay, and notification. So hope you are doing good for your preparation, and hope if you like this video, so don't forget to hype the video, don't forget to share this video. I know the competition is tough, but have good karma. Okay, bye bye, take care.